Good evening, welcome to The Big Fight. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, Rahul Gandhi's stirring speech in Parliament earlier this week, where he spoke about his idea of India. In it, he spoke about India's federal identity. Now that's nothing new, but by raising the issue of states having primacy with their own independent identities, it seems clear that Mr. Gandhi was trying to position the Congress party as possibly a natural ally and representative of state parties, perhaps ahead of the next general elections in 2024. It appeared clear that Rahul Gandhi's words, where he pushed through an us versus them binary between perhaps the Hindi belt and other parts of the country, Kerala or Tamil Nadu specifically, was extremely well thought out and meant to take on the centrism of the BJP, which relies greatly on hyper-nationalism as being perhaps a definitive national unifier. On the show tonight, is Rahul Gandhi's vision of India a challenge to the BJP?
If you read the Constitution of India, you will find, and many of my colleagues who have not read it should look at it, you will find that India is described as a union of states. India is not described as a nation, it is described as a union of states. There are two visions of this country. One vision that it is a union of states, meaning it is a negotiation, meaning it is a conversation, meaning I go to my brother in Tamil Nadu and I say, what do you want? And he says, this is what I want. And then he asks me, what do you want? And I say, this is what I want. It is a partnership. It is not a kingdom. Remember that. You will never, ever in your entire life rule over the people of Tamil Nadu. It cannot be done. You will never, ever in your life rule over these other people. Please listen to what I'm saying. No matter what fantasies you might have, you will never ever rule over the people of the states of India. It has never been done in 3,000 years. Never ever. The only way India has been ruled. And you can look at any empire you want. You can look at Ashoka the Great. You can look at the Mauryas. You can look at the Guptas. You can look at anyone you want. It has always been ruled by conversation and negotiation. Now, what is the problem? The problem is you people are confused. The problem is you people think that these languages, these cultures, these histories, you think that you can suppress them. You have no idea of history. You have no idea what you are dealing with. Because the people of Tamil Nadu have inside their heart the idea of Tamil Nadu, the idea of the Tamil language, and then also the idea of India. Do not be confused. There is another vision, a vision that India can be ruled by a stick from the center. You people have no idea of history. Because every time it has been attempted, that stick has been broken and smashed. So there are two visions. One is a union of states, union of languages, union of cultures, a bouquet of beautiful flowers that can challenge any power in the world. No power in the world has ever been able to challenge this bouquet of flowers. Now, there is another vision, a centralizing vision, the vision of a king. The idea of a king, which the Congress removed in 1947. We smashed that idea of a king. Now that idea of a king has come back. That there is a king, a Shahin Shah, a ruler of rulers, a master of masters. A particular organization has captured the institutional framework of the country and is attacking the voice of the different states of this country. And my fear is that you will get a reaction from that voice. My fear is that this attack that you're carrying out on the institutional framework of this country is going to get a response from the Union of States.
राहुल गांधी स्वयं एक कंफ्यूज्ड आदमी है. ही इज ए कंफ्यूज्ड लीडर एंड जो कंफ्यूज होता है वो सहज रूप से ऐसे ही बात बोलेंगे.
I personally don't take Rahul Gandhi seriously and his thinking, his senseless remarks all the time. But because he is a leader of his political party and he has spoken these words on the floor of the house, I have to take note of these very, very serious charges he has leveled against the constitutional authorities. Rahul Gandhi, day and night, desires to destroy the image and heritage of India.
Well, let me introduce our panel this evening, and we've got a great panel. I'm joined by Jawahar Sarkar, Rajya Sabha MP of the Trinamool Congress, Amiven Yajnik of the Congress Party, Rajya Sabha MP, A. Sarvanan, DMK spokesperson, Sunil Singh of the JDU, Dr. Sarjeet Singh Dang of the BJP, N. Ram of the Director of the Hindu Publishing Group, and Smita Prakash of ANI. Thank you all very much for being with us. The first part of this program is called the First Punch. It is the first minute that we will give all of you to make your point before we open up the big fight. And the question is this: does Rahul Gandhi's vision of India represent a threat to the BJP? Dr. Sarjeet Singh Dang, can you take that question first? Go ahead, sir.
See, the problem is the Constitution. If it was raped only once in the last 75 years, it was by his grandmother, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, during emergency. Otherwise, most of the governments, they have tried to live with it and live with it honestly. He cannot cite even one example where any state has been shown any stick for the last 7.5 years by the central government. But you see, he is free to talk anything he wants. Another thing, because what you have shown is a part of what he spoke. He said, because of this present government, the Chinese-Pakistan relations, they have become very strong, and they are dangerous for Indian safety.
Okay, all right. Your 1 minute has ended over there, sir. We can develop on those points later on. Jawahar Sarkar, you have 1 minute.
The Constitution was...
1 minute, sir. This is the first punch. The debate will happen later. Your audio is down. Jawahar Sarkar, 1 minute. Does Rahul Gandhi's vision of India, in your belief, represent a threat to the BJP? Your time, first 1 minute starts now.
Okay. I don't know whether it's Rahul Gandhi's vision that we should be discussing. The facts mentioned in Parliament by Mr. Gandhi have a series of implications, and many of them are correct. We don't agree with Mr. Gandhi on many points, but on several of the issues that he has raised about a central authority bulldozing states, a hegemonic repression of state autonomy, several other points, including the fact that India is turning out to be a plutocracy, a rule by the rich. We are in full agreement. But we can't agree with him on all points, so we will say that the description of India that he has given is largely true, and we strongly feel that an autonomous India state in a nation where autonomy is respected, where regional cultures and aspirations are respected,
Right.
are the only formula for
Okay,
keeping
sir, your
India
time is
together.
up. The only formula
And
over there.
making
A.
it
Sarvanan, DMK spokesperson. There were lots of mention, there was a repeated mention by Rahul Gandhi in Parliament on Tamil Nadu. He gave many examples. But the question is this: does Rahul Gandhi's vision of India represent a threat to the BJP? Your time starts now.
Yeah, it certainly does. India, that is the Bharat, shall be a union of states. This is what Mr. Rahul Gandhi emphasized. BJP is afraid of our diversity, is afraid of our plural culture. They want to homogenize. They are so obsessed with one nation, one election, one nation, one ration, one nation, one registration, one nation, one language. They pander to Hindi majoritarianism. When this stops, the concept that Rahul Gandhi spoke was everybody has got an equal stake in the states. So this concept definitely will. This is the only way we can attack BJP in 2024, and that is the reason why our leader, Mr. M.K. Stalin, has written to 37 leaders across the length and breadth of the country to speak about, to have a federation on social justice and federal nature of our country. This
All right,
apart,
important points
the
over there, sir.
Yes. The
your
BJP is trying to deface the entire country. They
All
want
right,
to-
so the BJP is trying to deface the entire country. Some interesting points there, Mr. Sarvanan. We'll come back and discuss that in a while. Sunil Singh of the JDU. Does Rahul Gandhi's vision of India represent a threat to the BJP? Go ahead.
As usual, Rahul Gandhi is nicknamed Pappu, which proves again. Because he was talking too kiddish and too illogical, because everybody knows that according to the Constitution of India, we are having a cooperative federalism where state and the nation runs with this one constitution. And there has to be a strong nation to have strong states. And with a malified intention, he deliberately tried to have cleavage between the states and the culture with ulterior motives. For his political gains, he can stoop down to whatever level. That is quite clear. There is nobody is ruling Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu are our brothers. Every state is our brothers. But there is a cooperative federalism. Nation has to be strong. State has to be strong. There has to be cooperation. And this is how we are functioning. Just for political gains, you cannot label anybody as a ruler. If you are labeling anybody as a ruler in a democracy, I think on a parliament, there should be a breach of privilege. A case should be filed against you, because in democracy, there is nobody as a ruler.
Okay, your time's up. Smita, you next. Go ahead, your time starts.
Well, I think Mr. Gandhi is entitled to his view that, that the BJP has a flawed vision for India, and that according to him, that vision has weakened our nation. But then in the same breath, he also says that the Indian Constitution, he points out, is that it's a union of states and it's not a nation. Now, the concept of nationhood is not an alien concept. I don't know where he got that view from. It's not in conflict with our constitution or our democracy. But then I think we can leave that to political science scholars about the politics of the current politics. Yes, his speech about the notion that the BJP is trying to bring about uniformity in, say, language, as the Tamil gentleman before me spoke, or that does irritate, anger, and even agitate some people where the language is not Hindi, where it's not North Indian language. Now, if cooperative federalism, which he talks about, if that did not exist in our country, we couldn't have battled the pandemic.
All right, we couldn't have handled the pandemic without cooperative federalism. Smita, time's up. Mr. Ram, 1 minute. The question, I'll repeat it for our viewers and for you. Does Rahul Gandhi's vision of India represent a threat to the BJP? Go ahead, Mr. Ram.
It's a challenge to the BJP, and a timely challenge to this, because he brought forward the idea of union of states, which implies federalism or quasi-federalism, and respect for diversity and pluralism also in politics. So that's welcome. He would have been more persuasive had he distanced himself from the over-centralizing drive of the Congress party itself, which historically has done this at the expense of state rights. There's no time to go into it, but it's a fact of life. And so I think he would have been more, and he would have been more persuasive had he distanced himself or been critical of the emergency, yes, which was clearly an attack on institutions. But on subversion of institutions, takeover of institutions, absolutely right. He got 2 points right. But on foreign policy, he's completely off the mark. I won't dwell on it here. Maybe you'll come back to it. But that's my take. Overall positive, but I'm far from being uncritical.
Okay, exactly on time, Mr. Ram. Exactly like your pieces as well, down to the word. Ami Ben, you have the last word. Does this really represent a threat to the BJP? Many, as you have heard on this panel, say that no, in fact, it doesn't. How would you respond? Your first 1 minute. Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I think if you have seen Rahul Gandhi ji put his points in the parliament, in the house, at that particular point of time itself, you could see the BJP shaken. It's also a threat and a challenge, because I think the BJP has not understood India. BJP has not understood the constitution of India. The BJP has not understood what is the fabric that binds India, makes India a country where social justice is most important. And that is why I think the ministers simply came out and started attacking Rahul Gandhi ji. The way they speak about this country, the way they speak about leaders of other parties, itself shows that they are shaken. They have no idea what India is. Just because they are ruling from the center, they do not have the idea of the diversity of the nation. They do not know what is the unity of diversity. And I think it is definitely a challenge which they will first have to understand India and then take it as a challenge. It is of course a threat, and they do not know how to navigate.
Okay, they don't know how to navigate this threat. All right, let me just start up this debate by asking Dr. Sarjeet Singh Dang of the BJP. Rahul Gandhi in Parliament referred to the Prime Minister as Shehenshah. He said that kings can never have effective control of our country. How would you respond?
See, he made his vision very clear when he supported the Tukde Tukde gang. Let me tell you. And there was only once upon a time, it was a slogan, India is Indira and Indira is India. Today nobody says Modi is India and India is Modi.
So in other words, you're saying that the Congress is double standard.
His allegation is baseless. It is a sick mind. With a sick mind, he has made his own creation. As a doctor, I feel that he is a disintegrated personality. He has become schizophrenic. The things which are not there.
So that is your medical belief. That is your medical belief, sir. Or is that your personal belief? It's a bit worrying, sir, if you refer to this as...
Yeah, I'm a doctor. I know this is how a paranoid behaves.
Schizophrenic.
This is how a
Mr.
person behaves.
Mr. Som, can I come in?
Yes, please go ahead, Amiben, go ahead, respond to that, yes.
This is how he behaves.
No, sir, that's a deeply personal remark. And I don't think that's based on any sound medicine, despite you being a doctor. Amiben wants to respond, go ahead. That's unacceptable, sir. Amiben, go ahead.
Totally undignified.
Mr. Som,
go ahead, Amiben.
I think, Mr. Som, you can have a one-to-one conversation with the gentleman here. If he is going to use derogatory and defamatory language, I think he himself needs treatment. Yes, it is. It is. No, I think you better be dignified.
She is opposing your characterization of Rahul Gandhi as being schizophrenic on the basis of what you say is your medical evidence. That's not correct, sir.
Vishnu, may I say, this
yes,
man
Mr.
doesn't
Ram.
belong. This man doesn't belong in this debate. This doctor, I don't know anything about his medicine. He doesn't belong here with us.
Dr. Dan, would you like to apologize for those remarks? Would you like to apologize for those remarks?
He cannot be on such debates.
Mr. Dan, Dr. Dan, would you like to apologize for those remarks, the personal remarks on what you say is Rahul Gandhi's schizophrenia without a shred of evidence, sir? I'm sorry you cannot make that remark.
This is disgusting.
Would you like to take that back and continue, sir?
No. Every time he talks without any basis.
It is shameful to have such a panelist on your debate.
No. Don't blame me, ma'am. Respond to him as I have.
That is
All right. Amiben, would you like to take on the rest of what he is saying? 1 minute. Amiben, why don't you take on the rest of what he is saying? Where he says that Indira Gandhi, as a prime minister, as a leader, built up a strong centrist nation. And therefore it's disingenuous for Rahul Gandhi to say that, you know, we can't have a strong center to that extent and that it's only federalism that works.
Well, we cannot go back to that times, and we are talking about today's times. We are talking about the country today. We are talking about unemployment. We are talking about not to deal effectively the pandemic. We are talking about poor people being ushered into utter poverty. We are talking about loss of jobs. We are talking about how the nation has become, the country has become so different in equities that we have a large class of poor people and a very small class of elite where the money is, wealth is concentrated. I think the medical person himself needs treatment when he's coming on a national TV and talking
He's
what
a
is
BJP
absolutely
spokesperson.
Undignified
Yep.
and derogatory.
Yep, all right.
Whoever he is.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. I don't think.
India was Indira.
No, sir. Dr. Dan, you're welcome to make your political remarks. But the moment you get personal, you refer to somebody as being schizophrenic and all, that's rubbish. That's unacceptable. Sunil Singh, let me ask you this question. The larger issue of what Rahul Gandhi was saying about, you know, a strong centrist BJP, the rule of a king, a Shehenshah being unacceptable. Do you, however, believe that states have primacy in India, in the India of today, with having independent identities while still being joined together within the unity of a single nation? Let's look at the example of Tamil Nadu, which he spoke about. He says that while Tamil Nadu is very much a part of India, there are cultural affinities and linguistic affinities which are very Tamil. Is that acceptable in the India of today?
So let's realize it that
Vishnu?
India is unity in diversity. There is total cooperative federalism, which was totally seen in the COVID times, the way state and the nation acted hand in hand, and we could defeat the COVID thrice, the third wave also. But that kind of a thing referring to the Prime Minister as a king, first of all, one should do a soul searching. The Congress party has its president of one family, dynastic rule for years together. Who is king? Who is prince? It's of common knowledge. Second thing.
But you're not answering my question.
You are belittling democracy.
I'm going beyond that entire Shehenshah king argument because there's a lot that he said. I'm asking you about whether you can have an independent identity, and he raised the example of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, while still being part of a united single nation in today's day and in today's context. He says that you can't challenge that notion as is being attempted to be done by the BJP.
That we are, and let me tell you, Som, I am also an eye specialist. I will label Rahul Gandhi is in my own terminology. Rahul Gandhi is a myopic person. He's a short-sighted person. If we see politics for petty, immediate gains, then by talking about Tamil Nadu, he might gain a clap in Tamil Nadu, but that will do a bad thing for the nation. Strong state and the strong nation are the beauty of our constitution. Let's stick to that only.
Strong state, beauty of the nation. So all right. A. Sarvanan, would you like to respond to that? Strong state, united center, that is key.
Yes.
In Tamil Nadu, is that acceptable to you? Is that acceptable to your identity?
Just a moment, I'm coming to that. The British colonialists accepted that India has a federal structure and this country cannot be ruled by someone with a stick sitting at one corner of the country and dictating his own terms. The problem is those in power at the center forget this concept. Can you tell some who said this?
No, who did?
Our own Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Modi said this. Prime Minister Modi said this.
Modi said this when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Now they have become the Prime Minister. He has become the Prime Minister. So they want to change the rules. They say no more federalism. They were talking about federalism during the COVID times, and that is why we were able to manage it. No, it is not so.
Sirji, even today.
Let me, sir, please interfere. Stop interfering, sir. I will finish my arguments. See, during COVID times, the states were not allowed to procure vaccines. The states were not allowed to procure test kits.
I disagree.
No, that's a separate point.
So there is
No, in fact, Jawahar Sarkar, would you
Very
like to come in on this? Because Mr. Saravanan makes an interesting point that there are double standards. That Modi, and assuming that quote of his is correct, said something when he was chief minister, and now, I mean, the perception is that he doesn't follow that.
Absolutely. Mr. Saravanan is absolutely correct. Mr. Modi is completely going against whatever statement he made as Chief Minister. As a Chief Minister, he insisted on state autonomy. Today, he is insisting on the destruction of that very autonomy of states. There are hundreds of examples, and that gentleman who was talking about Indira all the time forgets that that was a short period of less than 2 years. And for the last almost 8 years, we are going through the corrosion of institutions, the destruction of all existence, all pluralistic thought and action. He does not believe in cooperative federalism, and it is perfectly within our rights to demand and to secure autonomous states, strong states within a strong union. We are not defying the union. We are cooperating
in today's India. Is there space for a Tamil Nadu and its linguistic identity or its cultural identity as being perhaps foreign in the minds of many people, while not saying that, you know, India is not important?
Tamil Nadu.
One second, Smita, go ahead. One second, Smita, go ahead. Yes.
How come? No, yeah, you know, I'm just noticing so much of this sudden kinship with Tamil Nadu. The time
he spoke about Rajasthan as well and Kerala,
who was
but the point was the same.
Yeah, and the Rajasthan government was also dismissed by Congress government at the center. Gujarat government was dismissed by the center. If we start, Andhra government was dismissed by the Congress government.
He was talking not necessarily about dismissal of governments. It wasn't a political point that he was mentioning when he was talking about identity.
So,
he was talking about identity politics.
Point, Vishnu, I am bringing a political point because identity right now in parliament, when you're talking, what are you talking about? He was talking about Shahenshah, right? He was bringing in the past. I'm sorry, I beg to differ with Amiben that you can't bring in the past. I think Mr. Ram alluded to it, and it's true. The list of, if you want to just go about culture, he talked about Ashoka the Great. He was one of the most cruel kings. It's a different matter that later he turned a kind guy, but then he was one of the most cruel kings. When you talk about kinship and things like that, and you talk about state governments dismiss, who dismissed Farooq Abdullah's government? 17 years Prakash Singh Badal sat inside the jail. Who did that? It was the Congress government. Right. I mean, we can go on talking about, you know, there are such blood spots in our democracy, Vishnu, that if we start talking about the past and about cooperative federalism, no, we didn't have it. We didn't have it. Can you imagine today a Mamata Banerjee being thrown into jail or Uddhav Thackeray being thrown into jail? Sharad Pawar's government was dismissed by Congress government. Yeah. There was so much in our, and believe me, at that time, Vishnu, we are all accused of being pliable media, Godi media. This was all a time when there was no private television. All our bigwigs of media was silent when it was happening, right? Today, Mr. Prakash Singh Badal is talked about being this great leader when he was incarcerated for 17 years.
That's so lots of important points.
Why was there silence in the media?
All right. A couple of important points that Smita makes. Would you like to respond to that? That there are huge double standards when he tries to push federal cooperation or cooperation at the federal level, right? When in fact the Congress is the last political party you should be looking at when it came to pushing that concept for decades.
Yes, she forgot to say that Tamil Nadu, the DMK government was unjustly dismissed twice. Once directly by the Congress,
right,
and then,
then
the instance of the Congress. But that apart, yes, I think it would be more persuasive were he to distance himself from those acts. But he has a point that he was not responsible for it. But he has to go further, in my opinion, and take a clear stand on this, on state rights, state autonomy. But I think he got on to a rather profound thing, Rahul Gandhi, on when he focused on the Union of States and linked it with Tamil Nadu, where he said, and that was an interesting statement, the idea of Tamil Nadu, the idea of the Tamil language, and the idea of India, all three integrated. I think it is quite a profound idea that's right. But I hope he takes a clear position on it, and if and when he emerges.
But Mr. Ram, was it really profound? I mean, this is the basis of our constitution. Cooperative federalism is.
It has been forgotten historically.
Right.
It has been dishonored historically, and it's interesting that a man whose party has contributed to this in a big way has said this. But on the other hand, they are taking it further. The present lot is taking it further. That has to be highlighted.
Right. Okay.
So in combination with the subversion of institutions, NDTV did that excellent thing on raids, right? Carried on. It provided data against opponents, particularly at the time of elections or in the run-up to the elections, that sort of thing. The Election Commission has lost a lot of credibility. And
okay.
The judiciary...
Yes.
I think a lot of people are disappointed with the judiciary not taking up some key issues.
And these were points that he brought up as well.
But we applaud the judiciary when it acts.
Okay. I want to go back to Mr. Saravanan. Mr. Saravanan, is this in fact an effort by Rahul? There is a method behind what he is doing. It's not just a political remark for Parliament right now. Is this an effort by Rahul Gandhi to position the Congress as a natural ally and representative of state parties before 2024? Is that what the game is, the goal is?
See, I think so. I think so.
And you accept that and you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. See, the problem here is the majoritarian government. The moment they have the majority, they forget everything. From 2004 to 2014, there was a minority government. Let us not call that a minority. There was a coalition government. So everything went smooth. These issues never happened. We had we even were part of the BJP government. In 1999, we had this common minimum program. The common minimum program defined that BJP should not rake up Jammu Kashmir issue. They should not take up Ayodhya issue. They should not insist on common civil code. They agreed. The government continued. We were able to control the BJP government. The problem here is the majoritarian government.
All right.
That is the whole problem.
Okay, Jawahar Sarkar, it's a bit difficult or a bit challenging for the Trinamool Congress. At one level, people say that your party is positioning itself as an alternative to the Congress, and given the number of people joining your party, there is some credibility in that argument. But when you have a Rahul Gandhi talking about federalism, does that not in fact fit exactly into what the Trinamool also has to say?
We have been repeatedly saying that we are for the strength of the autonomous states, and there is no contradiction on that point. And
will you unite politically with other parties like the Congress on this theme?
We are always open to discussions and positive programs with all opposition parties, provided they are sincere and have the tenacity to oppose the BJP. It's a lack of tenacity.
No, but I'm asking you about the theme of cooperative federalism. Is that a unifier for the Trinamool Congress with other opposition parties?
Absolutely. Cooperative federalism is something that we have been talking about for a long time, and what we get in result, or what we get, is combative federalism. Combative federalism is something we will not accept. No self-respecting state, no self-respecting party in India will ever accept that position. Please remember that. There is no contradiction on this issue of uniting states and opposition parties on fostering identities under the overarching umbrella of a firm and united India. There is no contradiction at all. This contradiction is being sought to be made out as a diversionary tactics by the BJP at the moment. They are under threat and they are behaving and talking as if they are under severe threat. That doctor or person, whoever was saying a terrible thing. This is not the way to react. Their ministers have come out. The Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, who needs to have Parliament in a consensus on a dialogic form, comes out in aggression. This is no way to behave. This is no way to behave.
All right.
Parliamentarian has made a statement, and please go in for a discussion on it. Don't shoot down everything. We are in favor of cooperative federalism. We are in favor of...
Okay, I get that point. Dr. Sarjit Singh Dang, one of the quotes of Rahul Gandhi was this: you will never ever in your entire life rule over the people of Tamil Nadu. It cannot be done. You cannot win the hearts of people in states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu. He also gave the example of Rajasthan. in the way in which the BJP is trying to do it? How would you respond?
See, once and for a long period, for about 50-55 years, Congress was ruling in the center and in the states. Now what will happen tomorrow in Tamil Nadu? Who will come in power after 10 years? Nobody knows. Who will come in power in Kerala? Nobody knows. So this is a question which I don't think it merits any comment. The people elect the representatives, and the representatives, they are in majority from a particular party. They form a government.
No, sir, I think that the point is a bit deeper. We face a profound linguistic divide between the Hindi belt and the non-Hindi belt. Tamil Nadu is in fact just an example. Rahul Gandhi was trying to push this particular line, that there are huge cultural differences, linguistic differences of tradition. It's not about, sir, it's a bit simplistic to say we will see who will win the next election. I am trying to ask you to respond directly to Rahul Gandhi's point, sir. And that is when he says you will never ever in your entire life rule over the people of Tamil Nadu. It cannot be done. Respond to that specifically, sir, based on the context of what he says.
See, it is the people of Tamil Nadu, they will decide that which party will rule Tamil Nadu. It is the people, neither me, nor Rahulji, nor anybody. It is the people. The people will decide who will rule Tamil Nadu, which party will rule Tamil Nadu, who will become the chief minister. The representatives will decide.
All right, so the representatives will decide. Sunil Singh, what are your views on this issue? Because at one level, all right, so I get the point you're mentioning. Sunil Singh, at one level, this was also going beyond the linguistic issue and us versus them sort of effort by Rahul Gandhi. Now, he didn't quite make this a division between the Hindi belt versus the non-Hindi belt, because he raised the example of Rajasthan. But do you believe that that was in fact what the goal was? To say that they, as in the BJP, the states that the BJP appeals to, versus us, the others who believe in this federal state of India. Was this what his goal was?
So it was Rahul Gandhi's statement was the hypocrisy at its best, or double standard at its best. The Congress party, when it was reaching the way it was respecting the sentiments of the state, we all know that, the way they have illegally dismissed the duly elected government many a times. And now it is the days of Modi, at least we can say, that the leadership of Tamil Nadu, the leadership of West Bengal, they call all kind of names to Modi, but Modi cannot do anything because they are all bound by the Constitution of India, which says cooperative federalism. This thing only gives autonomy to Mr. Sarkar to talk about autonomy to the states. That is going beyond the Constitution. But still we are all tolerant about it.
All right, Jawahar Sarkar, respond to that point. You're being extra constitutional by asking for more power to the state.
I think the B team of the BJP is completely wrong. They're exceeding the brief of the BJP. There is a state of ferment, and it is not Hindi versus the rest, nothing of the sort. It is hegemony versus autonomy. We have to look at it from that point of view, and I fully agree with Mr. Ram and others who say that the Congress itself has practiced hegemony and has led to this situation. But forget it. Right now, we are faced with a demonic hegemony, and that is more important. We can condone the past for the present.
The kind of a law and order in your state.
It's an irony. Contradictory statements.
The kind of a democracy you follow in your state, we all know. So talking big is something else.
He has no business to comment on my state. Let him look at his own state. Let him look at his own state. He has no business to comment on my state.
It is for
a wider debate in Parliament. No,
Constitution.
We are not interested in what the B team of the BJP has to say. The B team of the BJP and the BJP does not interest us.
All right, okay, 1 second. Let me go across to Smita. The words used by Jawahar Sarkar were demonic hegemony, as that practiced by the centre. Is that where we are in this country now?
Absolutely.
I think what happened in West Bengal deeply divided the people of Bengal, because they saw the BJP coming with this Hindi muscular nationalism, and they didn't like it one bit. So I can well understand when the TMC wants to paint the BJP as a demon. But the point is that if the BJP was that horrible for the people of Bengal, it wouldn't be where it is today, which is the number 2 party in the state. It has pushed aside the Congress, which was there for a long time. It's pushed aside the left parties. The point is that it's not as if who's going. Language is an important part, Vishnu. You can't put aside language. I mean, after all, Bengali language is on the basis of Bengali language, an entire country was created. Only country in the world which has come across because of the language movement was Bengal. So language is important and it is connected with politics. There's no denying that. Even the Tamil movement, there's a whole movement regarding the language. You can't separate that from politics. But to demonize BJP because of their Hindi and their Hindutva thing, it is linked. I don't deny that. But do the people see Rahul Gandhi as the leader of that other versus us? I doubt that very much.
Was he trying to do that, Smita? Was he trying to project himself as the leader of the other?
One second, Vishnu.
That's important.
Has he picked up a single language other than English and Hindi? Has he picked up a single language? He's campaigned in all these states, right? Has he said even a couple of sentences in another language? Whether he campaigned in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, anywhere.
No, but how many languages is he expected to speak?
Nobody sees him. Why? One language?
No, he speaks 2 languages. He speaks 2 languages. I mean, that
speaks a language. Bharat speaks a language. Everybody speaks a third language. That is why he will not be seen as a leader of another cultural movement.
Mr. Sarvanan, would you like to take I think it's an important point that Smita mentions.
Yes.
Respond to that. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. See, we are very happy that Rahul Gandhi is speaking in English. That is language. That language is equidistant to everybody. That is a neutral language. But the Prime Minister, does he do that? No.
What are you calling
apart from that?
Hindi is our language.
Allow me to speak. Allow me to speak, Please. Yes, allow me to speak.
Go ahead, please.
When we are talking about this language, every scheme in the union government is named in Hindi.
What is wrong with it?
Are the people from other languages not paying taxes? Why is this happening?
Hindi is our language, Mr. Sarvanan. You cannot demean Hindi.
But Tamil is also an official language.
Nobody is demeaning
Hindi. No, but how are you demeaning? He is not demeaning.
But how can you demean Hindi?
Mr. Singh, he is not demeaning Hindi. He is talking about how in his mind his language is primary for him.
Asif Khan, Ella Khan, we enjoy all of them.
Yes, he's good. We all respect Tamil. We all respect Tamil. Tamil is a good language. Yes, agree. But you cannot demean Hindi. Hindi is the unified force in India.
In India are Indian languages. And they are always better than a foreign language English.
Mr. Singh.
This point must be clear to the people.
Just a moment.
All right, okay. All right. Enram, this actually strikes at the heart of the debate. You cannot take away language and you cannot push an identity, whether it's a Hindi identity or in certain senses, values and traditions and cultures, which are different from a particular state. The difficulty of India is in actually managing unity despite nurturing difference, right? You can see it on this program. We keep hitting a wall on this all the time. Do you believe that Rahul Gandhi hit a chord on a key issue which is unresolved?
Yes, I think that is what I meant when I said it is profound. He touched upon the theme of diversity, pluralism. India is multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic, multicultural, multi-political, multi-everything.
What is new in that?
No, don't interrupt me.
What is new in that?
Don't interrupt.
What is the new point in that?
All right, Dr. Dang, let him make his point.
You must learn basic civility when you have a debate.
Dr. Dang, 1 second, let him make his point.
Basic civility when you discuss. Okay, be civil.
Mr. Ram, go ahead. Yeah, just finish your point, sir.
Yeah, so I think it's quite a profound thing. The other thing about now and then is, people have forgotten to mention it, there's the Bombay judgment, which makes it much more difficult for any central government to do what the Congress did traditionally, get rid of state governments they didn't like. And nearly 100 instances of the use of that weapon. But I just want to make a bit of advice to Dr. Dung. I hope he'll take it in good spirit. Good that you are not ejected for that slur. Remember what Boris Johnson is facing today for one scurrilous remark against the leader of the opposition, and it's triggered an outcry within his party. People have left, so don't do that again. That's my advice to you. You can do well in other respects, but do not be scurrilous. Do not make personal attacks, and don't ever do it again. Because if I were anchor, I would have ejected you right away. His style is different, and you seem to have sobered down. So take this bit of advice.
Mr.
I think
Rao,
most of us.
Please permit me to answer him.
Yeah, go ahead, sir. But
Mr. Vishnuji,
I think he makes a point when he says that you can't just start calling people schizophrenic randomly on air.
Does not exist is paranoid.
Who is
the
paranoid?
Things which are not there in this country, Mr. Rahul Gandhi can only see.
Right, that's
And
one
it is
thing. But to
paranoia.
say on the basis of your medical advice
It
as a
is
doctor that
paranoia.
he's schizophrenic on air,
Without
that's
any
unacceptable,
evidence,
sir.
without
And
any
Mr. Ram has a
example,
point
he
when
will
he
say
says that
something
perhaps
which is
you
baseless,
shouldn't be on this
which
panel.
has no meaning.
But let me just go across. That's fine, sir. Make your political points. By all means, sir. But, you know, it's a bit rude to do what you did on the top of the program. Sorry, unacceptable. Those remarks. Ami Bain, last comment to you. I'm just trying to understand Rahul Gandhi's policy or his politics over here. Is this the beginning, ideologically, of a new front ahead of the next elections?
Vishnu, I think the simple thrust of Rahul Gandhiji's address in the parliament was that the idea of India and the idea of India having a constitution and we are all bound by a social fabric where there is unity in diversity has been lost, and there seems to be so much confusion on the other side that people have indulged into on this panel attacking him. I have never seen this kind of discivilized behavior, and I have not seen professionals behaving like this, especially when you are a medical professional. I have suddenly come to a suggestion that these medical professionals should also have a certificate of sanity when they come on these debates.
Let's end this. I think we've made this point, and let's get over this point.
To his level.
We've gone beyond this point, but I think a lot of the points mentioned in the speech by Rahul Gandhi, many would suggest one of his better speeches in recent times, has certainly struck a chord. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Lots of questions and comments coming in on coup. Navdeep says, many times Rahul Gandhi raises questions which the opposition is unable to answer, but when will people realize this? Manohar Mahato writes, the BJP always tries to divert citizens of India from Rahul Gandhi's vision by making fun of him.